5 rounds down and 1 to go. Can you believe it, Matilda Raynolds? We're almost at the end of the inaugural edition of the ProVelo Super League. Welcome, everybody, to the Road to the World Tour. I can't wait for the Q Tour.
Yeah, I cannot believe, Matt. We're almost 6 rounds. This is the final one, and it's come around quickly. We've really had, after the Warnie and then the Sydney GP Tour, it's gone back to back. And so I think that's what's been so exciting for the action is that these athletes have been able to hold their form. And that's why, we really saw it at Grafton to Inverell, the best fields we've seen for a long time, because so many of those athletes are usually already in Europe. So we're here, 73 points. It separates first and second in the women's, and 43 points separates first and second in the men's, and it is all to play for. I cannot believe whoever takes out this weekend will get a signed contract with Jayco Alula or Liv Alula Jayco, the Conti team, and in the men's a stagiaire. It's a huge opportunity.
It is a golden ticket. This is no Willy Wonka. You get lucky if you buy the right chocolate bar. This is you go and get your own chocolate bar and you earn that opportunity overseas. Today on the show, we're going to catch up with Tristan Saunders, the winner of the Squadron Energy Grafton Inverell. We've got Gina Ricardo coming up very shortly as well. We've stopped her out on a training ride. And as always, we're going to close the show with Angus Calder. He's going to take the PSL pulse. And it was good to have Angus with us in commentary for the first time on the Grafton Tills.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And he knows the riders really well. And also, particularly with the Grafton to Inverell, he'd done that race a few times. Neither of us had done that, particularly in the men's race before. So, yeah, it was great to get his insight. And it's been fantastic throughout this whole time to really just be analysing, I think, what different riders can be doing. And I think what's really propelled this tour, though, is really the coverage that we've had on SBS to be able to look back and see where riders could have done better or what we may have missed. And also, Matt, what I'm loving so much is being able to tell the stories of these riders, so many names that we haven't really focused on before, and also so many of the under-19s that I think we'll be talking about for many, many years to come.
Yeah, they have been great stories, and I've loved the Velo phone. And we had Tristan on the Velo phone, and he lied to us a couple of times or didn't completely tell us the truth. So we're going to talk to him in a minute. So let's get to Gina Ricardo, because she had a massive result on the weekend. She took out the Squadron Energy Grafton Inverell. It was Gina Ricardo ahead of Rachel Wales. Riley Ackroyd was then in third position and rounding out the leading group of 4 riders. It was Aberdeen McLean, and then we then had the youngest rider in that leading group from the Praties team, Tully Schweitzer, in 5th position. Gina has stopped out on a mid-ride. You've taken the cap so you don't have helmet hair on a bike ride. I love it, Gina.
Yeah, of course.
What did it mean to you to get that win on the weekend?
Yeah, it was pretty special. I mean, coming from the Praties team, I truly believe we had 7 riders on the start line that day who could have won the bike race. So it was I felt pretty privileged to be the one in the team that, got the opportunity that day to pull it off and take the win. And it's just nice to have a result that sort of reflects all the hard work that I've been putting in the last 2-3 years in training. Yeah, now, very special.
You're not in the bracket where we classify you as old, but you're not young either. But did you feel old being in the breakaway with a teammate who was 17 years of age?
I felt more experienced for sure.
I like it.
Yeah, even at 5K to go, we started to play cat and mouse and really backed off the pace. And we went from we had a 5-minute gap at that point, and I knew that we would stay away even with us just faffing around, and really just taking off the accelerator. But Tully was still at that point worried that we were going to be catched, and that's all just part of the experience of knowing how it all works. Yeah.
Now, Gina, give it to me. What's happening in the team? How is everyone coping and managing with such little gap between first and second? Sophie Ma, Talia Appleton, how are they coping in the team? How's the team coping with it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic. I mean, it's a privilege to be in that position where you've got 2 really talented riders holding on to 1 and 2 so strongly. First and foremost, our team goal is to win each tour and get a result for the team. So, yeah, we want to win the overall series, but I think we just take it one day at a time. And the Q Tour it's got a pretty significant, TT where time gaps can be made. So it's up to both Sophie and Talia to sort of prove to themselves and to the team, like who will be most deserving of that contract.
As the experienced member on the team, what role do you play in managing that process of having first and second in the SPS Women's League?
Yeah, my job's sort of just to help them on the road, and I just do love a good breakaway and cover moves and just be just sort of be there, to help them out and just kind of calm them down. We have a lot of really talented riders this year, but a lot of newish riders to racing, like Sophia Salmons, even Frankie Hall, who's a bit older, but she's come into the sport quite late. So, tactically, she still has a lot to learn too. It's just been fun to sort of be more of a mentor in that team environment.
Gina, do you think you mentioned there, you've got a lot of talent in that team. Do you think next year that riders will be looking to potentially spread themselves a little bit more? Because I know in Praties, there's even one or two riders who actually looks like may not even get a race opportunity this year because the team is so strong. And then obviously, the dynamics of having the two top riders in the league on the same team.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, it is challenging when you've got such a strong lineup to get enough race starts because everyone is so deserving of a race start. But I'm also curious to see, everyone's kind of got plans to go overseas and race, whether it's in Europe or America. And with such a strong start to the season, maybe we won't have that problem at the end of the year because they'll all be on paid contracts or signed with bigger teams. So, see what happens in 6 months' time.
What are your plans for the rest of the year?
I'm heading to the US on the 13th of May for a 2.5-month crit block stint. Try and make some money over there, have some fun. I had a really good time there last year with some amazing host families, so I can't wait to see my host families again and do some more racing over there. And then maybe a couple of extra overseas trips at the end of the year to do some gravel racing and mountain biking if it all lines up.
I'm not sure who I'm interviewing here. Is this Matilda Raynolds' response or is this Gina Ricardo? That's your path, Phil.
Yeah, she did. Gina did give me a few messages last year on how to do it, but no, she can easily, Gina, you can easily pave your own path over there. It's a fun time, and the crits are just obviously there's big money over there, but it's just a really good vibe. But Gina, congratulations on the weekend. You're obviously a rider that's been in the sport for a long time, given back a lot, and it's great to still have you racing and trying to, as you say, there's not a lot of experience in that team, and for you to be there supporting such young riders is, they're coming leaps and bounds. But to win the women's Grafton to Inverell or halfway Mount Mitchell to Inverell was a huge result, mate. You really deserve it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Do you think it's your biggest win ever?
On paper for sure.
Cool.
I think so. Yeah. It feels special, really special. Yeah.
Before we do let you go, one last question. Q Tour is coming up. It kicks off on Friday with the crit in the heart of Brisbane at South Bank. What's the training process from here to there?
I've just been doing really nice, easy recovery rides with a few activations this week. I noticed my teammate Frankie rode 100K yesterday.
She was sitting in the bunch though, doing 100 watts. She needed to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just everyone's programs are different. Everyone handles, some of these girls do pretty serious volume, so they prefer to go into the race with a bit more fatigue. Personally, I like to come in a bit fresher. Went for a surf yesterday morning, mental
jealous.
Refresh. So
it's your home race. It's your home race. Have you gone over the courses at all? Any key moments you've pulled out on the Queen stage, or are you just gonna rock up and?
No, it's about 2.5 hours north of where I am in the Gold Coast. So I've not had the opportunity yet to have a look at the course, but I'm very excited to be racing in the heat and humidity that I'm used to.
For home ground advantage. Gina, congratulations on your win in Grafton Inverell, and good luck for the last one of the Q Tour.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully I'll hear you both in the velophone in the crit on Friday.
Love it. Can't wait. Back to training for Gina Ricardo, and we will be talking to her on Friday night, Tills. It's been a really big league for the Praties team in particular, as you alluded to. At the moment in the SPS Women's League, it is Sophie Ma who is on top. She's on 496 points. Talia Appleton, her teammate, is second on 423 points. It's then Ellie Anderson, who's in third position on 342 points, followed by Caitlin Nicholson and then Lauren Bates. Then in the race for the JCO under 23 classification, the top three is exactly the same. Once again, it's Sophie Ma ahead of Talia Appleton and then Ellie Anderson. And then for the under 19s, for the Billigins under 19s, Hannah Giannati, who we spoke to last week, she's still at the top of the table there. And I've been impressed with her, Tills.
Yeah, really impressed. And I think, it's amazing, these riders now, particularly on the female side, Matt, who are coming through the ranks, who have had coverage their whole lives, their whole cycling careers so far. And she's already got idols like Elisa Longo Borghini or Amanda Spratt, because she's been able to see them. She's been able to watch live coverage of these riders. And, there's a really clear pathway now. And she's able to look at those riders going, that's where I want to be. There's a viable career there. And, she's studying from home, and they're going to be going over to Europe with ARA Skip Capital for 2 or 3 months. So it's just a huge opportunity, and really great that they're able to get this base training. It's not just, they learn so much from each race that they do that they can take into the next one, which they'll really need for Europe.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying watching this group of riders that are starting at the domestic level in the under-19s and watching them go over for that next adventure, and been following on, pro cycling stats, the results of some of the Case Body Wrap riders, and they're now started their campaign, some of them in Europe. In Asia, I should say. One of the feel-good moments of the weekend was in the men's Squadron Energy Grafton Inverell, because he delivered in Devonport on the velophone. It was the win for Tristan Saunders. He's now got the iconic Australian double, a winner of the Melbourne to Warrnambool and the Grafton Inverell. Tristan Saunders, that is a pretty good combination. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I've always wanted to do the double since winning the Warnie, so it was nice to tick it off.
Pretty significant moment for the team as well to have Brennan again with so many numbers at the front. Before we talk about the race itself, Brendan Davids, does he own a couch at home? Does that guy know how to relax at all?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's much sleeping that goes on with Brendo. He's it's crazy, honestly. I mean, I'm full-time riding just every day, and he balances everything somehow, and he's still 10 times stronger than I am. All I have to do is just follow him around and then hopefully finish it off at the end. So, no, I don't think so.
He's a machine. Coming into the finale with three, we'll talk about Mark O'Brien later, but coming into the finale with 3 riders from Brennan in that leading group, do you feel a sense of pressure when it's on you to be the one to finish it off?
Not really, no. I was pretty disappointed after the Sydney round that I couldn't get the win in either stage or the GC. Seeing in the other rounds, all the other boys had got their wins when it was their turn. So I felt I knew I had to just be confident. And all day I was just looking after my legs in the bunch. And I think that's why I was so lucky to have guys. I mean, the whole team really could have been there in that group in the final, but it was Marco and Brendo. And yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be hard for it to go wrong. I mean, I was confident in my sprint, and like the boys had worn down Zach over the day so much, and it was a credit to him that he was there. I mean, even after Gibraltar on top of the climb, he was vomiting. He was having some issues with the fueling, and for him to be there at the end after following all those attacks, it was awesome to see him there. But I knew he'd be a bit more tired than I had, because all I had to do was just sit behind him all day. So, yeah, it was an impressive team ride, that's for sure.
We didn't see some of that on the coverage, Tristan. We were sort of more focused on the breakaway. I don't think there was a single shot that we shared that Brendan Davis wasn't in. I almost was getting confused on, like, have we accidentally mucked up the cameras here, because it was just ridiculous. I was getting with the amount of breaks he was in. But talk us through the Gibraltar and that those key moments after that we didn't see during the coverage. Was your main task with Marco to get rid of Cam Scott and also put Zach under pressure?
Well, yeah. For me personally, it was just about making it over the climb as far forward as I could. And right at the bottom of the climb, the gap had gone out so far that it was safe for us to start doing some attacks. So Marco was pushing the pace at the bottom, and so was Zach, because it was beneficial for both of us, sort of. Like Zach needed to come back to the front of the race to close the gap to Jack. So he was testing everyone's legs as well, and this pace resulted in Cam just getting dropped. But then, obviously, over the top, it blows out so much once the team start picking it up. Like Cobra 9 as well were straight into riding, which it was also beneficial for them, which sort of allowed us to take a bit of a back seat, because Butterfields and Cobra 9 both wanted to keep the gap as big as possible, and so did we. But we obviously had the card that Brendo could have ridden to the finish line on his own from anywhere. So we took a bit of a back seat, and that was really good in that phase. I think that's where I got to save a lot of energy, and a lot of guys were working in that phase. And eventually Cam did come back, but he would have had to do, a real lot of work behind. And sort of coming into Glen Innes is when it all started to split up. It was, we'd done a really good job of conserving for myself, but as well with the other boys. And then when it all started to light up, we just had so many numbers there ready to be at the front.
And we've mentioned Mark O'Brien. He was at the front. Tell us what happened that led to him being disqualified.
Well, I wish I could. I mean, he was behind me, so I didn't see what happened. Which, I mean, as far as I can see it, Marco's one of the most respectable and most experienced riders in Australia. So I'm sure whatever it was either not intentional on his part, or just, I don't know. But for me, I'm sure he wouldn't have done it with any intent. And I mean, we didn't talk about it after the race because we didn't want to put a damper on the result. But I mean, I've seen a few things saying it would have drastically changed the result, but I think we had so many other guys at the front that we would have had the numbers and the legs there to do the same ride anyway. Like Julian was flying all day, and he was at the front there at the end. And he's so young. It was just incredibly impressive. Every time I'd come up next to him, I'd be like, "Yeah, all good, mate," and he'd be like, "Yeah, all good." Just into the depths of the race. It was really awesome to see.
Yeah, I think a pretty hard call to say that it could have changed the result. You only need to look at Marco's Strava to see that he averaged normalized power of over 290 watts for close to 6 hours. And I can't fathom what it was like for Brendan Davis. If someone said to me that Brendan Davis was sitting behind a car, I would believe them. But I saw him on the coverage the whole day. That was just... we are seeing just out of this world sort of performances from some of these guys at the moment, and yourself, Tristan. So, yeah, harsh call. I've never seen a commissaire change their mind, though. So I think for Marco, fortunately, he's not in the league. But if it was someone else, then the hard thing with this is that does that call then carry on? Do they make these calls for the next race if someone sits behind a car for what could have been less than 20 seconds, who knows? So
as long as it's consistent, that's all you just want, consistency. And Marco would probably be the most disappointed person of the lot, I would well imagine. I want to, on a positive note, Jack Ward was obviously pretty happy that you beat Zach Marriage, given that he was at the Mountain Bike National Championships. Talk to us about Jack Ward, and given your experience, what you believe the future entails for Jack.
I think anything he wants, really. I mean, that kid is so impressive. I mean, the first race I did with Jack was last year in Europe. We were teammates on Bridge Lane, and this race was like 4,000 meters of climbing in 150K. Like, it was never, if it wasn't 15% uphill, it was 15% downhill. There was no flat. And our entire team DNF'd except for Jack. And it was his first race in Europe on the road. So young, so fresh to it. And there was maybe 20-30% of the race that actually finished. And at that point, I knew he was just obviously a freak. And he's probably just about the nicest, best kid in the world. You know, it makes it so easy to put everything on the line for him when he's so appreciative and he's so humble. He never says a bad thing about anyone else, or he never talks about how good he is. He doesn't. He just won't accept that he's just about the best youngster coming through. So it's a bit of an honour and it's a pleasure really that I can sort of try and help him to come through, because I'm sure he's going to be one of the best guys to come out of Australia in this time. You know, I think wherever he wants to go with his career, he'll be able to get there.
When I look at him from the outside, I'm sure you're probably going to agree with this. I think, what are his weaknesses? He's so damn nice. That might be his only weakness. As a human being, he's amazing, which he doesn't seem from the outside to have that ruthless streak, but he must have it within him.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, we don't get to see it because he's our teammate. He's always nice and friendly with us in the bunch. But I think, I honestly don't see what his weakness is. You know, he can do everything. I mean, you see in Tasmania, he's the best climber. You know, that performance on the third stage over that long climb, it was just amazing. And to have the confidence to do something like that, you know, he attacked with 7K to go and rode on his own with Zach, you know, at the same gap the whole way behind. It would be so easy mentally to just be like, oh, I'll just go back. But it just shows for how young he is, he's very, very experienced and knowledgeable in racing. And if he ever does anything wrong, he only does it wrong once. And he remembers always, if he made a mistake, how to correct it and what he should be doing instead. You know, it's super impressive to see from such a young guy. And yeah, he's always very appreciative of the guys who work for him. And yeah, I hope he gets where he wants to go, because he's such a good kid.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in him getting to where he wants to go. What about Zach Marriage? Because Zach's a few years older. And I imagine that you've probably got a little bit of empathy for Zach because he's so often outnumbered by you guys in orange. What are your thoughts on him and his future?
Yeah, well, Zach's also one of my good mates. We've come through together. Like, we were teammates on Butterfields a few years back and teammates on Bridge Lane as well. So, and Zach's, you know, it's funny because they're almost the same kid, you know. Zach is exactly the same. He's never got a bad word to say about anyone. He's so humble and he's so talented. And yeah, like you say, it's really unfortunate when you get into the finals of these races and you have to race against Zach, because he's a really good mate of mine and he's such a talented rider. And when you have the numbers, you feel like you feel a bit bad by doing what you have to do. You know, it's a race, but Zach knows that and we know that. And later in the year, Zach and I are riding for the same team in Asia. So I'm going to do everything I can there to help him out and pay him back, and, you know, give him a few opportunities where I would have been racing against him otherwise. So that'll be nice.
Well, you've certainly landed a few blows to his chin, that's for sure, Tristan. I think you're not the only ones feeling slightly sorry for Zach when you're just placing Jack Ward on the finish line in some of those crits. But talk us through the Q Tour. We're coming up to the grand final. There's 43 points separating your teammate Jack Ward with Zach Marriage. What are your thoughts on the final round?
Well, it'll be interesting, I think. I mean, it's set up to be a really good finale. I think it'll be a similar sort of feel to the Tour of Tassie, obviously the way it's set out. I think I'm definitely confident in Jack that he'll have everything to keep his gap, maybe extend it. I mean, the team, we always make sure Jack's the first goal really, and then we sort of work around that with going for stages with other guys or going for wins elsewhere. But I mean, you could easily go into the race trying to win every stage with Jack. He's that talented. He's just about as good on every parcours. So we'll do what we can to keep the gap and hopefully extend it. And then as well, we'll see if the stages line up with that and see if we can get some stage wins as well.
Well, we're looking forward to it, and I'm not sure who's going to have the Velo phone, but mate, you delivered in Devonport on the Velo phone, and half the time I knew you were keeping plenty back on us.
Yeah, it's good fun, the Velo phone. Really, I mean, my favourite part is when you just start chatting mid bunch, and everyone sort of turns around to look at it. They're like, "Who are you talking to? What are you doing?" And you're like, "Sorry, I'm just on the phone."
It's probably like when you first started seeing people walk down the street and they were talking to somebody on the phone with earbuds as opposed to holding the phone up to the
Yeah, you get some funny looks, but no, it's awesome. I think it's a really good aspect to the racing. Like it would be very easy to watch cycling and just think everyone's very robotic. You're just doing a job, but there's such a personal aspect to it, and I mean. Obviously the racing is hard, but yeah, at points you're still able to talk, you're still able to have a chat. So I think it's awesome to see the innovation in this series. I mean, it's never been done anywhere else. So I think to make it sort of more personable and show some of the rider personalities is what the sport needs, and especially at this level, because we don't get as much, media coverage as the World Tour guys. So whatever can bring more people into it at this level, because it's some of the best racing you see. People aren't afraid to do any tactics. Early attacks. It's all of the races have been super, super exciting. I mean, the Warnie, the final of the Warnie, the final of the Grafton, all the stage racing. I mean, in Tassie, 1 second to separate GC. You rarely see that at the World Tour level. So
yeah,
the more people we can get in at this level, I think the bigger it'll get, because the racing is actually super, super interesting. So.
Yeah, and we've discovered a whole new training zone, talking threshold.
yeah, that's right. Usually that's what you sit out in the crit until the last couple of laps.
Perfect. All the best for the Q2, and congratulations on Grafton Inverell.
Huge.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. He was great on the Velo phone, wasn't he?
Oh, Matt, and I had so much feedback. Like everyone just couldn't. I just loved when he's just like, "Oh, just hang on, yep," and just keeps chatting. And then we see the coverage, and he's closing down the gap. He was nose breathing. But I've got to say, Tristan, all the compliments that he was just rattling off around Jack Ward, Zach Marriage, I've got to say, kudos to Tristan. I think of the exact same attributes to him. He's extremely humble. You heard him there talking about the future of the sport and how important it is. And he's only 26. This is still a young guy who can still make it to the World Tour, but already talking about wanting to work for Zach Marriage. And he joins a very, very short list of men who have won the Melbourne to Warrnambool and the Grafton to Inverell, and that he will keep that forever and be part of Australian folklore and cycling. So I'm so happy for him, and
and he gets his brick with his name on it in the walk in Inverell. So let's take a look now at the sum up overall league leaders. It's Jack Ward who sits on top. He's on 381 points with just the Q2 remaining. It's then Zach Marriage who's on 338. Followed by Brendan Davids. Then Tristan Saunders is now up in the 4th. And Till's in 5th position is Cameron Scott from Case Body Wrap. He's on 265 points. This guy spent the last 2 seasons in the World Tour. He's a world-class rider and he's 5th. That speaks volumes of the quality of the racing.
Yeah, I was just thinking that before as well, like to have Connor Leahy, at the front of much of our gold medalist last year in Paris, in much of the front of the racing that we've seen in this league, and they're all really going for it, I think, and it's going to set them up so well. Pretty much everyone we've spoken to, Matt, they've got plans after this tour, and that's where Matt Wilson, his experience, where he brought this tour together, knowing that we've got to have it condensed. We need everyone's attention and focus on this tour to allow them to then go to Europe after, and that's why it's working so well.
Yeah, the timing's been impeccable. For the Jayco under-23 category, the all-important under-23s, for the race for the Stagiaire stint, it's the top two at the head of the table again. Jack Ward ahead of Zach Marriage, and that's going to be the big talking point heading towards the Q Tour, which one comes out on top. As for the Billigence under-19s, it's a very impressive Ollie Jervik who leads the table there, and ARA Skip Capital, they have got a smorgasbord of talent coming through.
Yeah, and again, they're going to Europe. We spoke to them when they were, many of them are already there, which is really exciting for them. So yeah, I think this type of experience, though, it's all about this foundation. When you get dropped straight into Europe, I've never seen it work. And to have this type of foundation being built is just going to hold them so strong for the future.
Yeah, and Tristan just wanted to let us know he's 25.
I know. I'm aging him. I just can't believe how mature he is, but he's only 25. He's been in the sport for a while, and again, so yeah, no, Tristan, apologies, I've aged you already, but that's what a win at the Grafton will do.
Yeah, it does. Well, let's take the PSL Pulse and let's bring Angus Calder in as we look forward to the final round at the Q Tour. Angus, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, what a weekend we're about to have.
It is pretty tight at the top. This is exactly what we wanted. Where do you want to start first? You want to start with the women's or the men's?
Let's go women's first, I reckon. And I think just quick recap on the Mount Mitchell to Inverell. Dominant performance from Praties. I think they've set themselves up really nicely coming into this weekend for the Q Tour. They've got first and second overall. Sophie Meyer in the lead. Talia Appleton second there. I think they're in a pretty commanding spot. The question is, who is it going to be? I think Sophie Meyer, she's probably the favourite coming into this one. But Talia Appleton with the time trial and then also that summit finish that we've got for stage 4, as we've seen, anything could happen. If she ends up having to cover a move, we can see a very strong Meridian Blue team lining up here. Alyssa Pilates is back in action as well. You know, Talia Appleton, if she needs to follow a couple of those moves, we could see her sort of stepping up a little bit more. So I'm very excited to see this one.
This is the first time that we've seen a full-strength Meridian Blue team on the start line. And Matilda, to have Keely Bennett, Lauren Bates, and also Alyssa Pilates all together, and Ackroyd was really good on the weekend as well. This team is really strong.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is they've had a bit of strength, but maybe not the experience, which is where Keely and Alyssa really come into it as well. And yeah, it's a shame, I think, for that team. They really feel like they finally have their squad, but it is the last round, and that is what, like, we've talked about how great it is, how condensed this tour, this series has been. But the challenge is, if you have 1 week off, you have a concussion, which what Alyssa's been dealing with, if you are sick, if you are injured, if you get hit by a car, that can take you out of the entire series, really, or the entire league. So, but that's the reality of cycling. We see that in the pros, you know, Vindegaard has an injury and it puts him back, you know, months. Remco, he's already talking about being, you know, not ready for the tour, and he was injured in December. So it is the reality of cycling, I think. And yes, it can be cruel, but yeah, it's great to see them. They've got no excuses for this round.
Don't forget as well, in terms of experience, Jess Pratt also on that team as well. She's bringing World Tour experience. So they've got a lot of horsepower and a lot of experience. And looking forward to this weekend in terms of the race itself, the Q Tour, that's actually the team I think is probably going to be the force to be reckoned with. I think they've got that experience. They've got the horsepower. Could be could go either way. Lauren Bates has been incredibly strong these last few rounds. She's shown how capable she is. Alyssa Pilates as well. I think one of those two is my pick to win this weekend.
How about Ellie Anderson, Butterfield Zip Track Racing? They've been very, very good. And Ellie is, you know, she's in the mix as well.
Absolutely. And that time trial as well that we're going to see, I think it's stage 2 for the TT, 8 kilometres. That favours her really well. She had an outstanding performance at the TT in the Tour of Tasmania, obviously climbs very well. So she'll be looking forward to this one 100%. I just think for Lauren Bates, she and Alyssa, I think that last stage favours them really nicely. Lauren, she sprinted incredibly well on the weekend and has been throughout this league. So I think she might be able to pick up a few extra seconds or things like that around, which might help her. But look, it's going to be a really tricky one to try and pick an individual winner. I'm just looking forward to seeing how the race goes, because I think we're going to see a very exciting women's race. But I'm going to stick with Meridian Blue. I think they've got this one.
Okay, you're going with the whole team. You're going with the whole team.
Yeah, the whole team. I can't pick a single one. I'm going to pick Lauren Bates and Alyssa Pilates as my top two.
Okay.
I think what I really want to see from the women's is a more tactical racing, and from the other teams, even from their DSs. Like even with Meridian Blue, Lauren Bates won the bunch sprint behind, and I think we talked about during the coverage, it was a real miss from Butterfields. Ali Anderson had the most to gain, and she lost the most from the results over the weekend, not being in that break. And so what I want to see is like, yes, if that break goes, if you're not happy with the mix-up, stop rolling, bring it back and make sure if you're in that break, you can win from that break. Don't just be so excited that you made the break. Yes, it was great to have Riley Ackroyd up there, but I think she had some other riders behind that probably could have won the day. So I'd love to see that a little bit more from the women's racing this weekend.
Yeah, what I'm really looking forward to seeing is if Talia Appleton takes the leader's jersey after the individual time trial, and we head to the final stage, the Queen stage, at Moreton Bay Hinterland, and she's in a position to win the tour, which could give her the win overall in the SBS League, and how that then the relationship works with Sophie Marr. So I'm gonna go with Talia Appleton to win the race, and I can't wait to see how Praties actually play it.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. I think I really agree with that take. And I think, look, Talia Appleton was in a position to attack Sophie Marr during the Tassie tour. And so will that come back, pay dividends for her and the way that Sophie will race that weekend? But I think Gina had a great point when we spoke to her that it's going to come, set yourselves up for the time trial. Who wants it more? And that's who we will race for. Okay.
And then, you're going to pick one winner. I'm going with Talia Appleton. Angus has gone with the entire Meridian Blue team to win.
I'm going to go Sophie Marr then. I think, out of both of them, they both deserve it. And I think Talia, I would pick Talia as well up there with Soph. But I think, either one of them, deserves this jersey. So I'll go with Soph if you're going with Talia. Okay. All right.
The men's race, Angus.
Men's race, this is going to be crazy. I'm looking forward to this. I'm so excited about what we're going to see this weekend. You've got the big showdown, Jack Ward, Zach Marriage. Zach had a very strong ride. Incredible performance from him last weekend to take second there. He needed those points to put him in the running coming into the Q Tour. He delivered. Didn't get the win, but he picked up, I think it's 80 points at least for second place for the Grafton to Inverell. So he's right there in the mix. He's an excellent time trialist as well. So similar to Ali Anderson, his teammate there, he'll be very excited seeing that one. Because I think it was 17 seconds or so into Jack Ward for the 4-kilometre time trial in Tassie. I know it's not an apples-to-apples comparison necessarily, but it does bode well for Zach coming into this weekend. Jack Ward, he's going to be looking at that last stage as well with a lot of excitement, I'm sure. And I'm very interested to see how they go for the battle across the stages, because you were saying earlier, Tills, there's 43 points between them. If you win the tour, the gap from first to second is only 20 points. So Zach Marriage, that's not enough for him. He's going to have to be right up there on the stages or the sprint or the KOM classification if he wants to close that one down. So even if he does manage to win the tour and Jack comes second, that by itself is not enough. So I think that means we're going to see some really dynamic racing throughout the weekend. And I'm looking forward to watching both of them duke it out.
And on Friday night, we've got the Criterium live on SBS. The original plan was just to have the Sunday, the Queen stage, but it's been extended. So the coverage on SBS will include the opening stage at South Bank. And as we saw in Devonport, there was great lead-outs from guys like Tristan Saunders to get Jack Ward those small time bonuses. I'm sure that we saw Tristan dab the brakes to make sure Jack got over the top of him in one of those sprints. I actually think because of, as you highlighted, from the time trial in Tasmania, Zach Marriage took 17 seconds on Jack Ward. Jack Ward then got that time back and won by 1 second with the mountaintop finish there. I'm going to go with Zach Marriage to win the tour outright, to win the Q Tour, but I'm going to go with Jack Ward to have enough points to be able to hold on to win the Summer ProVelo Super League, the first one.
You've pretty much taken the words right out of my mouth, because I think looking at Tassie, using Tassie as the comparison to here, the time trial is longer than Tassie and the final climb is shorter than Tassie. So that gives Zach more opportunity and removes some opportunity for Jack Ward. I think as well, it could come right down to the wire, because the nature of a TT, there might be more, I'll refer to it as sort of padding, people who might sit in between Zach Marriage and Jack Ward in that time trial. There were about 10 or 15 people in between them at Tassie. And so what that does is that pulls Jack down the standings, means the points gap is bigger. That favours Zach Marriage. So I think, yes, I would also pick Zach Marriage for the tour overall, but I think Jack, he's going to be right up there on those stages. He sprinted so well in Sydney. That was incredible. I can't see him not being right at the pointy end of both the crit and then also the other road race. And I think those stage points will give him what he needs. I'm sure he'll finish right up there on GC if he doesn't win it outright. So I'm going to have to agree with you, Matt. I know it's not the most exciting opinion there, but I think that's what we're going to see.
All right, Till, it's time for you to disagree.
Yeah, I think Jack will take it only because of the team. I think Tim Decker and Team Brennan are taking everyone. So even outside of whether they're riding as individual riders or they're going to take a huge squad up there. And you just heard from Tristan, Brendan Davis, we've heard from before, who's sitting in third position overall. They're so all in on Jack, which has been really special. I think that team should be so proud of what they have provided Jack over this league. But I think also one of the most positive takeaways from the men's race as well was we really saw Butterfield step up. We heard, Zach was on the rivet. He was on the ropes a number of times. We just heard from Tristan then. He was having stomach issues and he was getting dagged at times. And Zach spoke really highly of his team for the first time, and it's not on Zach. It's just that at first time that we really saw Butterfields represented, I found. So I really hope we see that again for the Q Tour, but I think they'll really have to take it to them. And Case Body Wrap aren't going to lay down and just let these two teams fight it out. They're going to want to take, particularly because it's live coverage, that can make a big difference to a team's motivation, wanting to take the crit. So long story short, I think Jack takes both.
Looking forward to it. I think Butterfields agree. They've stepped up. We've seen Connor Doyle, Josh Cranage as well the last couple of rounds. I'm really hoping they can be around Zach at the end there, because he's sort of been worked over a little bit by Brennan coming into these sort of race finales. And if they can be up there, Brennan are there. Look, I think cycling is going to be the winner this weekend. It's going to be so exciting watching this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to bringing it to you, Tills. We'll be on the airwaves on SBS on Friday and on Sunday to close out the ProVelo Super League, the Q Tour. What a way to finish it.
Yeah, and just I think it's really, this was a dream scenario. We hoped it could be this close for it as well. But Angus, just finally for you, is there any the key points, key pinch points, key moments that you're really looking out for across the 4 stages at the Q Tour?
I think the time trial actually is going to be really critical, especially in that fight for the GC. If we're looking at Zach Marriage and Jack Ward, I think that's going to be a real make or break. I expect Zach Marriage to perform, but for Jack, that's going to be a make or break stage if he can stay sort of within striking distance. I expect the crit to be, at least for GC-wise, hopefully fairly benign. And then that final stage as well, similar to Tassie, but I think the TT is going to be a very big deciding factor.
All right, Angus, thanks for taking the pulse on the PSL again.
Thank you.
And Matt, just finally making sure that for any Queenslanders, any Brisbane people who are watching, get down to South Bank on Friday night for the Q Tour. There's going to be live, a heap of entertainment and under lights, the Echelon Club. And so go onto the ProVelo Super League to have a look at that and to book your tickets as well. You can join the Echelon Club there, VIP. It's under lights. So it will be a really good night to be there in person.
It's going to be a great way to finish the inaugural ProVelo Super League, new road to the World Tour for Australian cyclists. And we've got more than one rider within this league that is capable of going to the World Tour. Tills, can't wait to join in the commentary box on Friday.
Thanks. It's going to be great. Popcorn.
Bring the popcorn. See you all there. Bye.